After a tragedy like the one in Buffalo, the focus inevitably turns to motive. In his writings published online, the 18-year-old alleged gunman repeatedly referenced what's known as the Great Replacement Theory, a version of the false, racist, white supremacist, and anti-Semitic conspiracy theory that has taken hold in America is that prominent Democrats want to replace white Americans of European descent with non-white immigrants, all in order to gain new Democratic voters. The term originated with a French author who claimed that Western elites and politicians wanted mass immigration to replace native white Christian populations in Europe. This ideology is not new. Throughout our history, nativist xenophobia has been stirred up against Catholics, Jews, Italians, the Irish, and other immigrant populations, anyone who didn't fit the mold of the, quote, ideal American. The Great Replacement Theory is just the latest iteration, though, of a horrific tradition in American politics. In the 21st century, night after night, Fox News host Tucker Carlson espouses this very ideology, telling his viewers that they should be terrified of being replaced by illegal immigrants. And more, this racist rhetoric is seeping its way into the Republican Party's rhetoric.
People who have lived here all of their lives, paid taxes, followed the rules, been good citizens, would find their votes diluted to the point of irrelevance. The point of amnesty, he suggested, is not just to give citizenship to 11 million people. The point is to import as many new Democratic voters as possible.
This administration wants complete open borders, and you have to ask yourself why. Is it really they want to remake the demographics of America to ensure that they stay in power forever? Is that what's happening here?
Spanish speakers are creating their own society rather than assimilating into the country that welcomed them, and why wouldn't they?
I'm Kay Ivey. If Joe Biden keeps shipping illegal immigrants into our states, we all gonna have to learn Spanish. My message to Biden, no way, Jose.
Mexico is a hostile foreign power. For decades, the Mexican government has sent its poor north to our country.
Are you a racist? Do you hate Mexicans? The media calls us racist for wanting to build Trump's wall. They censor us, but it doesn't change the truth. Joe Biden's open border is killing Ohioans, with more illegal drugs and more Democrat voters pouring into this country.
I have less political power because they're importing a brand new electorate. Why should I sit back and take that? The power that I have as an American, guaranteed at birth, is one man, one vote, and they're diluting it.
Diluting, importing. Notice how they don't outright say Great Replacement Theory. They just hint, wink, and nod at it. Last year, Congresswoman Elise Stefanik ran campaign ads on Facebook calling President Biden's immigration policy a, quote, permanent election insurrection. And her ad said that Democrats are, quote, attempting to flood our voter rolls with 11 million new voters. After the shooting in Buffalo, Congresswoman Stefanik condemned the actions of the mass shooter, but she did not outright condemn the hateful ideology that allegedly motivated him. She did not walk back the hateful, conspiratorial language in her campaign ads. She did not disavow the false Great Replacement Theory. We reached out to Congresswoman Stefanik and asked her if she wanted to directly condemn this theory. We have not heard back. We also reached out to Fox News asking if Tucker Carlson wanted to do the same. Instead, we received pages upon pages of transcripts of his past shows, essentially saying that racism is bad. Which is right, racism is bad. But his response did not answer our question. And look, I get it, Tucker Carlson, he's a right-wing television host. Fears of immigrants and fears of the other, that's his bread and butter. But what worries me is that apart from Republican Congresswoman Liz Cheney and Congressman Adam Kinzinger, we're not seeing the forceful denunciation by the GOP of the racist reasoning that allegedly inspired the Buffalo shooter. So joining me now is Matt Costelli. He's a former CIA officer. He also served as the Director for Counterterrorism at the National Security Council under Presidents Obama and Trump. Matt's now running as a Democrat for Congresswoman Elise Stefanik's seat in New York's 21st Congressional District. Matt, it's a pleasure to have you today. I got to ask, watching this Great Replacement Theory rhetoric being brazenly incorporated into the discourse and the platform of GOP officials, including Elise Stefanik, the person you're trying to unseat, do you think that voters are now actually starting to pay attention to this kind of extremism?
I think so. We're certainly hearing it all throughout our district. And I think it's critically important to recognize what the severity of what this represents. And so you had highlighted that some of this, these theories or these kinds of concepts are nothing new. But what is new, what separates what we're hearing from folks on cable news and out of our, senior political leaders is this concept of this mainstreaming of these extremist views. Back in the 90s, a lot of this stuff was in the dark corners of the internet or in, huddled sort of rooms where people were getting galvanized and becoming more and more extreme. And now you have the number 3 in House Republican leadership, their messaging chief, Congresswoman Elise Stefanik, who's openly espousing these views as mainstream Republican values. And I think what we've seen, unfortunately, with the attack in Buffalo is that extremist talk has the propensity and the power to incite extremist violence. That's something we've always known. That's always true. I'm a longtime counterterrorism official. Most of my career was spent focused on foreign terrorism and jihadist terrorism overseas. But those concepts are true for ISIS as much as they are for white supremacists here at home. And now, unfortunately, we've seen that the similar things that we could have seen in places like Kabul are now happening here in the streets of Buffalo.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because we did note in the intro, you're a former CIA officer, National Security Council official. You just mentioned your focus was counterterrorism. But events like the shooting in Buffalo, Matt, they constitute the ultimate consequence of white supremacist ideology kind of manifesting itself in acts of domestic terrorism. In your view, does this kind of GOP rhetoric actually create national security concerns domestically right now?
Absolutely, because of that level of mainstreaming. Listen, it's one thing if you had some kooks on the internet or in some backwoods areas talking about these types of positions, but when you have the leadership of a Republican Party in Congresswoman Stefanik, their messaging chief, espousing these views, it becomes normalized. And that normalization of hate, that normalization of extremism has serious consequences. And that's what we've seen happen right now in Buffalo.
Matt, the Democratic Party, as of late, it's been faring pretty poorly with rural voters. Your district actually voted for Obama and then switched, like several others, in 2016 to Trump. What are you doing differently now so that those voters could maybe take a second look at the Democratic Party?
Well, I think the first thing is to listen. The opportunity to travel and to be in communities with them, to talk with folks and to identify what are some of their top concerns. Some of the things that I'm hearing from our community, the rising costs of daily life. This should not be anything new. Here it's the combination of, prescription drugs and healthcare, childcare, affordable housing, certainly food and groceries, transportation costs, access to healthcare in rural communities. It's not just about how you pay for it. It's actually how you physically access it. And the need for someone to actually have their backs and make investments in the infrastructure that we need. Yes, roads and bridges, but in rural communities, it's a lot of broadband. But right now, I think the opportunity to show up and listen, to hear what their concerns are, and to identify what those solutions may be. We get so spun up about the noisiest, voices in the room, folks like Congresswoman Elise Stefanik, who do a lot of complaining. But we really need to focus on where are the solutions. I haven't heard a solution out of her mouth about how is she going to help reduce the costs of food and groceries. I haven't heard a solution about how is she going to address the challenges about affording childcare or housing. And we want to be able to actually have a conversation within the community. Now, I think I have an opportunity in this regard where I can go into Republican strongholds in certain communities and actually have a conversation, largely because of my service and the focus of my career, really protecting our nation and focusing on our security.
Matt Castelli, thank you for your insight and for being here today. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Katie.